Bible prophecy is active and unfolding daily. Zechariah 12, Isaiah 17, Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38. Here is what the LameStream Media is not telling you. Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's newscast. There's an ever-worsening electricity shortage and crisis in Gaza, being characterized as an internal Palestinian dispute. From the times of Israel, Gaza residents had power for only 3 hours on Tuesday. Hamas could, if it wanted to, pay for enough electricity to significantly improve power supplies, but it prefers to spend millions a month digging attack tunnels into Israel and manufacturing rockets. Boy, talk about weird priorities. Estimates say Hamas is spending $130 million a year on preparations for war. Now, if you watched last Thursday's 2017 Rapture update, my friends, please know that there is but one net chetef, one rapture only that ever happens, and that is before the tribulation. The first singular pre-tribulation birth seen in Revelation chapter 12 in verses 5 and 13 and in Isaiah chapter 66 verse 7, as well as in Enoch chapter 61, is of the Zakar and is taken up to the Shamayim before the 7-year tribulation begins. The second plural birth after the tribulation begins, seen in Revelation chapter 12 in verses 2 and 17, and in Isaiah chapter 66 verse 8, and in Enoch chapter 62, is of the children. These are never taken up to the Shamayim. Rather, these are those who go through the tribulation and into the millennium. These are crucial points, my friends, and should not be confused. Now, one other note I have is my audio book is no longer available for sale, in physical form. But maybe even a bit better, now these are absolutely free in PDF format. And you'll see the link beneath today's newscast in the More Info section. Right-click on it to download a PDF file to your desktop, and left-click, normal click on it, to open it in a new window. You can view it online, you can save it in your browser, and always have it that way for you. Now, turning to wars and rumors of wars, on Tuesday, June 13th, from CNN, the U.S. military moved its high-mobility artillery rocket system, HIMARS, MOUSE, I'm sorry. The U.S. military moved its high-mobility artillery rocket system from Jordan into southern Syria for the first time, positioning it near the U.S. coalition training base at Al-Tanf. Now, this HIMARS is a truck-mounted system which can fire missiles as far as 300 kilometers. It represents a major boost to U.S. combat power in southern Syria and has been used to strike ISIS targets from firing positions in Turkey, Jordan, and Iraq. Then, from AMN Syria, the Syrian army has officially entered the big battle for Raqqa as the self-proclaimed Islamic State recedes into its de facto capital. After completely expelling the terror group from the eastern countryside of Aleppo, the Syrian army's elite Tiger forces is spearheading a massive assault in western countryside of Raqqa. Then on Wednesday, June 14th, from the Washington Post, dozens of ISIS militants wearing suicide vests penetrated Iraqi police lines in Mosul in a large-scale counterattack. The militants also launched 7 car bombs at the front lines south of the old city, their last foothold in the city. Then on Sunday, June 18th, from the New York Times, Iraqi forces began penetrating the narrow streets and warrens of Mosul's heavily populated old city in the last phase of a months-long battle against ISIS, which American commanders have described as one of the toughest in urban warfare since World War II. The assault began at dawn with airstrikes and a push by Iraq's counter-terrorism forces into the neighborhoods of the old city. It was met with fierce resistance by ISIS fighters, according to commanders, suggesting that the battle, the most vicious phase in the long fight for Mosul, could go on for days or weeks. As the fight began, security forces broadcast a message to residents of the old city over loudspeakers saying, quote, "The security forces are advancing toward you, and the salvation hour is near, and the enemy is losing its positions one after another, and their end is near." Close quote. Also from the New York Times, an American fighter jet shot down a Syrian warplane after it dropped bombs near local ground forces supported by the U.S., south of the town of Tabqa. The U.S. had airlifted hundreds of Syrian fighters and their American military advisors near Tabqa back in March during a push to cut off the western approaches to the ISIS capital of Raqqa. The U.S.-led task force in Syria said, quote, "The coalition's mission is to defeat ISIS in Iraq and Syria. The coalition does not seek to fight the Syrian regime, Russian or pro-regime forces partnered with them, but will not hesitate to defend coalition or partner forces from any threat." Then from Reuters, Iran fired missiles into eastern Syria, aiming at the bases of militant groups it holds responsible for attacks in Tehran, which left 18 dead last week. Iranian Revolutionary Guards launched the mid-range ground-to-ground missiles from western Iran over Iraq into the Deir al-Zor region of Syria, targeting the headquarters and gathering centers of Takfiri terrorists supporting and building car bombs. ISIS claimed responsibility for the Tehran attack. What is this ISIS claimed responsibility for the attack thing, my friends? I keep seeing this like popping up. So often, it makes me think that ISIS wants to claim any and all attacks that it possibly could. We do that. That's us. Yeah, that's us. It reminds me of the Russian character called Chekhov. You know, in the original Star Trek television series with Captain Kirk and Spock, Chekhov would always claim Russia as the origin of any famous historical quote or invention. Today, I imagine Mr. Chekhov would insist that the internet is a Russian invention. Turning to our Intifada update. From Haaretz, in the past year, the Israel Defense Forces has accelerated the installation of a comprehensive network of surveillance cameras throughout the West Bank. More than 1,700 cameras have already been put in place on roads, intersections, and in Israeli communities, including cameras clearly visible as well as hidden cameras. along Route 443 from Jerusalem to Modi'in. An operations room has been set up that collects data from many cameras in an effort to reduce stone throwing and firebomb attacks on this major artery. And there has also been increased use of drones, helmet-mounted cameras, and cameras installed on military patrol vehicles, as well as those of civilian security personnel. On Friday, June 16th, from the Times of Israel, 23-year-old Sergeant Hadass Malka was stabbed to death near Damascus Gate in Jerusalem on Friday evening while fighting off her attacker. Nearby troops shot and killed the assailant, and just seconds earlier, 2 Palestinian assailants attacked border police troops with a gun and knives in the Muslim quarter before they were killed. Hamas said on Saturday that the attack was carried out by, quote, 2 Palestinians from the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and a third was from Hamas. And on Saturday, June 17th, from Ynet News, Sergeant Hadass Malka, who was killed Friday in Jerusalem, fought to serve the border police and continued on after her mandatory service. Her uncle, Yaakov, told Ynet, quote, "She wanted a meaningful service. She wanted to contribute. She was patriotic like no other. She would come home from the army with a smile on her face and never complained." And looking at our review for last week's news, there are days when Gaza residents are receiving power for as little as 3 hours, thanks to Hamas. The U.S. military moved its high-mobility artillery rocket system from Jordan into southern Syria for the first time. The Syrian army has officially entered the big battle for Raqqa. Dozens of ISIS militants wearing suicide vests penetrated Iraqi police lines in Mosul. Iraqi forces began penetrating the narrow streets and warrens of Mosul's heavily populated old city to continue their battle against ISIS. An American fighter jet shot down a Syrian warplane after it dropped bombs near local ground forces supported by the U.S. Iran fired missiles into eastern Syria, aiming at the bases of militant groups it holds responsible for attacks in Tehran. The Israel Defense Forces has accelerated the installation of a comprehensive network of surveillance cameras throughout the West Bank. And 23-year-old Sergeant Hadass Malka was stabbed to death near Damascus Gate in Jerusalem. And that, my friends, is what the LameStream Media is not telling you. Abba willing, I'll see you here again next week. Until then, stay safe. Shalom.
Crowded rooms, I need more space than I consume. Enough is time alone with you, underneath a naked moon, sharing confidential moods and making chatter. Mockingbird nocturnal sings notations of eternal things, entering the quantum breeze, flying not for want of wings. He lights his gaze on you and me, simply because we matter.